Wow, it started early today. Maybe that was a spot supposed to wait for us. Aloha, everyone. Yeah, you're right, Scott. I am loud. This is Jason Schwartz. I'm your host here at the Neutral Zone. MauiNeutralZone.com, KAKU 88.5 FM, the voice of Maui.
The voice of Maui.
Simulcast on Akaku Maui Community TV, Channel 55. You can find us at YouTube at Dream Maui #1. You can find us at MauiNeutralZone.com. You can find us. The question is, will you know that you should find us to be able to find us?
And do you have an algorithm that lets you find us?
And well, once you share it, will someone be calling to try to solicit me and tell me, oh, there's some mistakes on your webpage? Hey, would you like to have a little touch-up,
Nice.
baby? You know, normally we charge $8,000, but we'll do it for $150, but only today, and maybe we'll give you. You can break that into different payments. Who are you? You're somebody that called me because you saw my name and number on a show, and you're deciding to revamp my website? Hi, everyone. This is Jason Schwartz. I'm your host here at the Neutral Zone, and I don't only have one guest, I have two guests.
Oh, yeah.
One of them, you know, that's our favorite co-host, Scott R. Bushnell. R stands for Aloysius. We put it in there so we know you're not that other Scott Bushnell.
Absolutely. You don't want that guy, man. He's in prison still.
And Greg Rife. You're not the Greg Rife of the son of the guy that did that machine, right? Rife machine?
Oh, yeah, that cancer machine. I forgot about that.
Her
I don't think so.
His granddaughter lived on Maui, Patricia Rife. Very nice girl.
Oh, really? So maybe I have some background here. I didn't know.
Yeah.
Well, she's been gone, oh, God, 2 decades already.
Oh, my.
I've been here 37 years, and I am sitting in the most important seat on this island. This is the voice of free speech here on Maui, and it has opportunity to have people that have all kinds of opinions come up and express it and put it out there into the air. And hopefully it's picked up by one of the people that hears one of those signals or has seen a link or has seen someone who knows about things. And maybe we compete with the 8 million other things going on at this time.
Absolutely.
Check your email up. There's a webinar starting. Hey, wait a minute. I'm supposed to host that one. What am I doing here? Hi, Greg. I'm sorry. This is you've caught me after a bump in my road. I really did have that website experience. You guys have had things like that. You think we're having a simple time, and the only simple thing is the simpleton who believes too many people. What did you do with your life? You weren't doing websites, were you?
Well, actually, it's funny you should say that. Ask that because I worked for, as Scott said, for a electric utility in Portland, Oregon, for 37 years. I retired 5 years ago, and my cousin was starting a business, and she wanted a website, and I said, you know, I know nothing about websites, so I taught myself how to develop websites, and I developed one for her, and I recently developed one for Scott.
Do you use like some of these online things like Wix or some of these other kind of shortcut programs to build them?
I do. I use it's called Divi, D-I-V-I. I'm not sure what it stands for, but it's a very intuitive, user-friendly interface. And
Done in volume interface.
Say that again.
Done in volume interface.
Yeah, well,
they're leveraging. They're going to have 25 of you guys building websites as experts. They do. And I got taken by that a few times. And, you know, my ex-wife said to me, did you check her out? Did you see what she's built and done before you paid her? No, I didn't. She looked like she could probably know what she's doing. She spoke like she did. Yeah, but have you seen what she's done? Well, it sounds like a Beatles song. See what she's done. So, do you build websites for free?
I have
a little
built
bit, right?
No, I built for the two people that I've done it for. It's free. It's a hobby. So I taught myself how to do it. Now, do I know a lot about it? I don't know, but I know enough to build a website that people seem to like. They seem.
Oh yeah, Tina's is amazing.
That reminds me of Apple when computer was like, oh no, code. I have to get in through these doorways. We're Apple. We're going to make it so friendly. You just hit a few buttons. And then you think you're yearly an expert. You're not. You're a user. You're using the
Oh,
thing they
Jason.
built, and now you're riding on something that they know if they go left, you have to go left.
See, there's a beautiful thing between Greg and I have been friends now 60 years.
Oh,
Yeah.
you're
Since
60
kindergarten.
already?
Since kindergarten.
We're 65, so we met
Yeah.
when we met at 5 years old in
Yeah.
kindergarten.
Yeah, and we've been
Wow.
friends. But the unique, when it comes to this web stuff, so our friendship is based on a unique balance. I've always had that bombacious jump in the middle of a pile of shit and put it together. And Greg's the guy over here going, well, I got the directions. And then I'm like all screwed up on something. And Greg goes, no, it was supposed to go that way. And it's like, it's a nice balance. It's like, yeah, I'll just steam into it. And Greg
He's
will
a
go,
37
wait a minute.
years stable guy, and you're like, oh,
Yeah.
like me.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
the
but
one
we
that
learned-
says,
but we
I
learned-
like that. She's English. She speaks English.
But we learned from that. I mean,
Yeah.
it's
Do
been a
we?
good balance.
We have a great balance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got to take me into that club. I feel like I am so out of balance from being whipped.
You got to get
from
out in the
left to
walk.
right.
We used to walk on the beach. I took Greg on that same walk. It's such a good walk. That one where we're kind of on the beach, then a little trail, then a little bit of road.
Oh, that's a great one. But are you tired at the end, or are you used
No,
to?
actually, it's very exhilarating. You know what's good about it? It's very therapeutic because Scott and I are good friends, and we can talk about anything.
Oh, wow.
It's a very safe haven.
Yeah.
You can talk about anything. There's nothing
Oh, yeah.
controversial. There's
What's
nothing,
on your mind today? You're speaking to only 3 million people today.
Oh, yeah.
what's
Well, you know what we were talking about was it's like I clicked on and I started seeing the bullet points. And I'm like, they're talking about, oh, we're going to have to cut the national parks. We're going to have to cut NOAA. We're going to have to cut this. I'm like, that is like, if you'd have 3 zeros past the last dot when it talks about the percentage of the federal government's budget. And I'm going, they have used this tactic in state government, local government, everywhere. If you want to pass a budget where you don't want to talk about the really garbage that's in it, punish the public. We're going to have to cut education. We're going to have to cut the parks. We're going to have to cut firefighters. And all of a sudden people are like, oh, no firefighters. Oh, no, I want to go to the park. And then you get everybody that has that emotional rip all of a sudden call in and push a budget through that has all kinds of trash in it.
So now it's all being cut, but reliance on services. You can't really rely on
there's
anymore.
there's the fear they're using.
Yeah.
Yeah, one side uses fear right now. Oh, you're going to lose your Social Security. You're going to use your Medicare. Oh, you're going to have to.
And some do.
Yeah, and that's one tactic. Fear. They use that. One side uses it against the other side, depending on who's got control.
But there's fear on both sides.
There are, but they target it. And Greg and I are talking about this. AI now, I could scribble down something in my dyslexic moment here. Tell AI, can you make this an emotional appeal? And AI will rewrite that, and I'll read it and feel like I'm reading my father's friggin' funeral notice. They have such power to manipulate words, and the news readers, I don't call them media anymore. They're news readers because everything they read spits out of an AI.
And it's amazing that even though the public has only heard about it for a couple of years, there's this new thing called AI.
It's not new.
And you speak to someone, in 1993 I was using it. We were building a model thing. We've been using AI. And I say to them now, 2 days ago I realized, Scott, and you'll appreciate this a lot, I've been involved with AI since 1994.
Yeah.
Why? Because my partner's name is AIRIELLE. The real McCoy, not the artificial one.
There you go. Well, and when I was in college, and I actually got a Tandy 1000 computer, and I stuck in a disk, and it corrected my spelling. I swear the heavens opened up, light came down, and I hit the print button, and I turned it in, and I didn't have red ink, and it was like, oh, Jesus has arrived in my dorm room.
No, I know.
Yeah.
You remember the Trash 80, the little square box?
Oh, yeah.
Radio Shack one? We've come a long way. Now we have more tools to... I can't say that word. He was looking at me like,
It's usually me. It's usually me. It's not Jason. It's usually me that
I
goes
was
there.
ready to say one of the big seven, or
Yeah.
however many there are.
George.
George
Carlin. There we go. Now you've
Now,
dated.
there was a man who said it
Yeah.
like it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, can't repeat them on the radio either.
Yeah. But you can watch them on TV now.
Yeah, it's really funny, isn't it?
Isn't that crazy?
Suddenly you come across it. I know, it's funny.
Yeah.
Do you guys know what we're talking about? Of
No.
course you do.
Yeah.
If you're listening to this show more than once, then
Absolutely.
you know we are a unique brand of TV and radio. At least we think we are, because whatever you hear us say very many times is really how we feel. And that's
Yeah.
the voice of Maui.
Right.
As opposed to the new radio station, that's the talk of Maui. Hi, my name is Rowdy Yates. Now, that's an original name. Wasn't that the name that Clint Eastwood had when he was in Rawhide 50 years ago? That was Rowdy Yates.
Gaines, yes.
And now he's the DJ, and he's talking about things. And in the jokes, you hear bigot. You hear all this stuff. And he's not local. Well, we have these people in Maui on the south side in Kihei.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. You can tell as they pronounce Lahaina.
Yeah.
And all this stuff. It's a
Have you?
rough road.
Speaking of Lahaina, have you gone down there to walk the front street yet since it's open?
I haven't, but I've driven.
Yeah.
a little
Now you
while.
can actually go. I
Go
mean,
away?
I was going to go to mass yesterday in Lahaina, and I was
Really?
like, yeah, because they've been having mass there for about a month or
At
so.
Maria Lanakila
Yeah,
Church.
yeah. And it's like that was my original church here, and I was like, I'd like to go back. And I got up, and Greg texted me. It's so funny that we had St. Teresa's, and he texted me, yeah, we're going to go to the 11 o'clock mass, and I went, oh, senor, you're going to the 11 o'clock mass, and he goes, do you speak Spanish, Greg? And he goes, oh shit, no, excuse me, we're going to the 9:30 mass.
You hear what you just said?
I know, we're going to the 9:30 mass. And
Well, it's
okay.
one allowed per show.
Put my nickel in the jar. There we
I
go.
think that was number 2, actually.
Yeah, that might have been number 2. Okay. Yeah.
So let's talk
But it was-
about. Tell me about Lahaina, because I left here right before the fire 2 years ago.
Oh.
And it was so devastating to watch it on the news and see all that happened. And the thing that always amazed me was the banyan tree and how that survived. Tell me more about that. Is that still there? And you're
Well, the
talking,
banyan tree
Yeah,
has roots down deep.
but they did a lot to keep it alive, though.
Well,
I
they
understand.
poured
Yeah.
every bit of fresh water that was on the west side
On the banyan
on the
tree.
banyan
yeah.
tree.
Which
And then they put in all kinds of, you think it was a person. They have a line going here with this kind of vitamin. They have this one. This extracts. Does a little backflip. And, oh, look, it's growing. It's in its growing stage.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. It was like a major trimming,
Oh,
but it survived.
yeah, I mean, isn't that extraordinary that something that had really deep roots?
Considering Cool Cats across the street pulverized, the whole Wharf Center pulverized, and it's just 50 yards away. That's just what's amazing. But the wind was blowing at the tree because it was downslope wind coming down through Lahaina, and that's what just amazed me, that it survived so well, because that entire fire at the Wharf Center was blowing right at the tree.
So what's on the waterfront now? You said it's being rebuilt. Is it?
Well,
Well, the waterfront
sadly,
was too far into the water for our
Okay.
current codes.
same thing that happened in Kona.
Okay.
Kona used to have all these really cool stuff from the back in the whaling days. Kona had along its waterfront had a boardwalk, and they had stuff out over the water, because that way the sailing ships that were pretty not heavy draft boats, they needed 9 feet of water or better, and they could be able to pull up, and that's what Lahaina was like for the whalers, and they decided that they've been pulling the pilings out, which Lahaina will look probably more like Kona now. It'll be like one side's a sidewalk and the other side is, yeah, will be.
Well, and I want to say it's probably, in some ways, imagine if that whole thing was there, and as the water is rising, you realize you're having lunch waist deep.
No.
And, well, we have to move our business back. Why? If you look that way, there's nothing but more business and more everything else. Yeah. So this was sadly, a clean sweep. And some will say, it was the aliens. Some will say it was people with a pointed lasers. Some will say it's because people didn't put out this little fire over on the side. And
It was those wicked winds. That's all it was. I was there.
So let's talk a little bit about this, Scott. So I've been coming to Maui now since 2003, but it only seems like in the more recent years we've seen these huge floods. The condos that we stay at have been flooded several times.
Jason and I hit on this too.
So this has already been a topic discussed.
No,
But it's an important
Yeah.
discussion. So when the sugarcane won this side of the island, when Baldwin Sugar pulled off the island, top of the island up there, as everyone knows, they piled rocks up. Every year when they did the cane, they'd find rocks in the field, and they piled them up, stair-stepping them down the hills. After Baldwin left, they went in and they tried to restore it to its natural state. Those rock lines that designated certain areas in those cane fields where they had the cane and they would burn it every year. Those actually were natural water barriers. They would slow the velocity of the water coming down the hill. It was check dams. They're called check dams out in.
Okay.
Yeah, and they would slow the water down, so the velocity slowed. So that when it got down towards Kihei, yes, we always had floods in Kihei. So even when I lived there in the 80s, we had floods in Kihei. But we didn't have the velocity to rip the topsoil apart and bring down sediment. It would be murky water, yes. We would have crappy water for snorkeling, and they had it in the 80s when I was doing snorkeling back then. But the velocity of the water coming down from Haleakala has absolutely no speed bumps. And that's what those check dams were. They weren't building them for check dams. They were building them to divide the fields, so when they did fires, they had barriers. And anywhere you dig up the ground here, you're going to find a chunk of lava. And you just stack it up and stack it up. Above Lahaina Town, back when Pioneer pulled out, which was way before, that was 98, that was before Baldwin. Those whole fields up there, they had these huge piles of rocks because they didn't do the checks, because Lahaina side is much smaller than Haleakala, obviously. But again, those served more than one purpose. They served multiple purposes. One, they divided out where the cane was planted, and they slowed the water down. Again, farmers were taking care of those lands. They knew that when they did that, the ground would hold more water. That was good for sugarcane. That was good for when they burned the fields and did the organic pest control and rat control and mice control. And they all of a sudden went, we're washing our hands. We don't want to fight 80 lawsuits about how we're farming. And they walked away. And nobody took care of the land.
And a company from Chicago, JMB AmFac, took over, and it became a real estate playground.
Yeah.
And an unmanaged area suddenly.
Feral ground.
So prior to this, how long had this sugarcane and this type of farming and check dams, how long?
Over 100 years.
Over 100 years.
Well.
So this was a almost an indigenous type of activity.
It was.
Well,
the
remember
farming.
that the Hawaiians were here.
Yeah.
Somehow they had it together.
Yeah.
And then came white man, and he decided he was going to exploit that territory.
More sugar cane, yeah.
Right. So it got built.
The sugar cane's gone. The check
150
check dams are
years.
gone. It's a real
the natural system's replaced by a system, a profit-driven thing. One side was like you're talking, the west side, and the other side is with these check lines.
Check dams.
When
so what's going
when
to
that
happen
all
now?
that stopped, now the water is coming so strong. So two different scenarios, both with the same thing.
Yeah.
The west side, the ground is growing wildly, uncontrolled. Water's going, no control.
And I talked to a Kapuna when I was up running the family farm up there, and he was old, and he said those winds would come down and they would flip our sugarcane trucks when they were harvesting sugarcane. Those trucks were huge. But we would get these winds when a storm front would park X amount of miles offshore and draw those mountain airs. They come over from this side, and they're cold from this side. This island's much cooler the Lahaina side or the Kihei. They come over, and that cold wind is like, oh man, I'm 10 degrees colder, and it
Drop them.
races down, because that's what cold air does. It races down to get below the hot air, and those winds. And the most interesting thing I heard is when I was watching on the news. Watching the news, and they were interviewing the Archbishop of Hawaii. And they were talking, isn't it a blessing that your church survived in Lahaina? He goes, well, no. The parishioners of Lahaina, when they rebuilt that church after the last fire 118 years ago, we wanted to build it so it wouldn't burn, because they lost the entire town 100 years ago.
Wow.
From the exact same circumstances. Those winds came, somehow a spark up country, or up on the
the hill.
Mocha side, and it just whooshed through the town. And when they rebuilt that church, they said, we want to build a church that won't burn. Those walls are 4 feet thick on
Stone,
that church.
huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was like, dang. Okay.
No wonder the sound is so good inside.
Oh, it's beautiful. Yeah.
I have a friend who did a concert in there. I video one time. The sound was very different.
Oh, it's incredible in there. Yeah. Well, they've got the curves. They've got, when the choir's up in the choir loft behind you, it's angelic.
But now their parishioners have to come a little further.
They do. Yeah.
I think if we talk about building, you guys, you were mentioning you were General Electric?
No, I was Portland General Electric.
Portland
it's an
General.
electric utility, just like Maui Electric or Hawaii Electric, that type of business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so my company provided electricity to the residents in the Portland metropolitan area.
Right, and you were
State of
just
Oregon.
owned by a big daddy.
No, actually we weren't. We were an independent company for a while. There was a short period of time we were owned by a company that no one's ever heard of called Enron, but that came and went.
I've heard of them.
Yeah.
Once.
Yeah.
This
well,
young
after the fact.
young man boarded a plane in Portland every Monday, flew to Texas, got on a plane and went home every Friday night to do a stint at Enron, and they paid him in stock. Talk about getting bent over. Sorry, but it was a horrible moment.
They paid most companies had a matching program for your 401k, and so that's what before Enron came into play, a lot of companies did your match with their company stock. So I had a lot of Enron stock.
My father had $300,000 worth of company stock when $300,000
Well, a
was
lot of
enough.
money.
A lot of money, and then poof, gone, and oh my goodness, then he died, and the rest is history.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, life is funny, isn't it? Funny.
It is funny.
Yeah,
but there was a silver lining out of that whole experience with Enron. I met a lot of great people there. My career, I think it helped my career because I was working around some very intelligent, very motivated people, good people, not bad people,
I
good
understand.
people. Yeah, and I learned from that. And I took away from that, brought that back home, and my career took off from there. Yes, there was a price to pay for being part of Enron for those few years, but there was positives and negatives to it.
Yeah.
I
And
always
they
tell
were
people
they
that-
were delivering. Enron, the old problem was with what? The stock, the profit. What made it go sour?
Ultimately, I think what it came down to, there were a few individuals that pushed the rules, the accounting rules, a little bit. And I'm not going to get into that. There's some books you should read that would describe that. It's called The Smartest Guys in the Room and Conspiracy of Fools. Those two good books that talk about that whole process and what happened, rather than me trying to describe it here.
No,
it's very
but
complicated.
but while that whole thing was happening, like you said, there were good people delivering good service.
Yeah, but there were a few people like 5 floors above me
Right,
where this was all going on.
And like you
eventually-
said, it was an accounting problem, bound to the same thing. We all want to gobble each other's children.
Yeah.
It's horrible. I'm sorry.
Oh, it's
Our
all
whole
right.
society is based on
Yeah.
somehow we all go to church and say we're pious, and go outside and say, "Oh wait, I got a week. I can do anything I want. Next Sunday I can be forgiven." Man, I got this game down.
Well, yeah, you're not Catholic, so you can't be forgiven. So we won't go there.
Anyway.
No, but Greg and I were having a
Wasn't that a
conversation.
question if the Pope was Catholic? He's from Chicago.
geez.
We don't know.
So Greg and I were having this conversation this last couple days because
Yeah.
we're walking down the beach. We're walking north on the beaches in Kihei down from Lapoa, my beautiful stretch that I walk
love
on.
that spot.
Great picture today. We took a selfie together. But we're looking at the windmills, and Greg we were talking about it. He said, it's a great technology, but it's not there yet. And Greg was saying, he said, well, in certain companies, you want to move your technology forward, and so you never, but I think it was sold to the public. That was going to be an end all. This is going to make us this wonderful amount of energy, when in actuality, Greg was telling me that it was never, it was a lose-lose. The only takeaway from it was learning new technology, because it wasn't cost effective. By the time you put them in and you make them generate electricity, you're basically just passing on a loss to the customers because it's not generating a profit. They have to be online working steadily for.
Well, I think what I was really trying to say about that, Scott, is that wind power, it's a technology. It's part of our overall
A little closer to the
energy
mic if you
portfolio,
can, Greg.
and it does add to our energy portfolio. It may be more expensive than other forms of energy, but what the point I was trying to make to Scott with wind, with solar, electric vehicles. These are all new technologies that are developing, and I don't think we should just completely ignore them.
No.
But we need to move forward with them and learn from and let it advance. Now, we had a discussion about electric vehicles, and they should not be force-fed to everybody, but they should be available.
Yeah.
And the term I was using was boutique.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the right term, but
No, that's right.
People
Yeah.
who can afford them and use them, and then let's then
It's a boutique product,
let
like
the technology develop.
like Tesla's
Yeah.
$160,000 truck that looks like it came from another planet.
Well, yeah, some of those Teslas are
Yeah.
kind of odd looking.
Yeah.
But my point is that as the first computers that came out, the first cars, the first planes, we're not that efficient, we're not that great, but the technology evolved, and eventually we have what we have today. I mean, now people can fly into space. It's expensive, but back in the 60s, you couldn't buy your way into space.
And now we have a simple thing like you want to fix your car, you want to do it, and it says you're missing this chip and this chip.
Yeah.
Now you can't fix your car. You got
it's
to
tough.
send things away. And what do you mean we make it in another country? Oh, my God. We're going to ramp up here and replace all this? Because now we can't even afford to buy our own products made in America. Some can, go with that. That'll be in a second conversation.
Yeah.
Someone's phone went off.
That was a choo-choo train.
Yeah.
That was all these things I'm talking about, I sound really nasty, don't I?
No,
I'm just
Jason, you and I had this conversation. Jason and I were sitting in a men's group one time. Great group of guys. And they were having this conversation that everybody just needs to go and buy electric cars. And Jason and I were looking at each other like, I can't walk out and buy an electric car. That's just way out of my friggin' wheelhouse. And boutique is a beautiful word. It's like yachts.
I'm a doctor. I have unlimited income. I think I'm going to buy 3 of those.
Well,
That
oh,
would
yeah.
make
If you
sense.
want to buy an electric car, if
God
that's something
bless you.
I know a lot of people that own Teslas. They love them, and if that's what you want to buy, great. But it shouldn't be a requirement. I guess that's a
No.
discount.
And the Joe Q that's driving a 12-year-old Subaru shouldn't be paying more on his registration because the electric car guy gets a dispensation for having an electric car. That when they said no title and license fee on electric cars, it was like, well, so that means they raised the price on Joe Q Public because we're paying for their registration with our registration increases. And it's like, okay. Yeah, it's like...
When you say that, I always think of Donald Trump these days. Sorry.
Really?
Yeah, well, he plugs in. How about today I heard it? It's an old story. Eat the tariffs. You big companies, just eat that. You're not going to adjust your prices. 30% change in prices. Just eat it. See how many... even the big guys go down.
Jason, you need to change your algorithm.
No, my algorithm is real clear.
Scott, I'm going to let you handle this one.
No, okay.
Okay. Maybe you have an idea, but
Well,
I tell you, when I go into Walmart and I see this thing,
I've seen that, and I've seen how you're going to respond.
Yeah.
I really want to see it. Let me hear it.
Well, tariffs are basically, okay, if you're going to send 10,000 people to my country to go to college,
Yeah.
then I should be able to send 10,000 people to your country to go to college.
Well, again, you know that my country can't handle it. So you're
China
making a
can't handle
requirement-
10,000 people to go to school?
No, they're opening that up. You heard all that. We're gonna knock it all away except for 10%.
Which is
10%.
You know what a great improvement that is? Oh my God.
But again, I am more of a global thinker. That means I know we have abundance.
Instead of 120%?
Because we draw lines and there's an us and a them, we've now come to a point where, hey, you're taking from us. Well, you should have already been giving. Why have you not been? We don't do that.
So basically you're saying that the automotive workers in Detroit who have been getting screwed over since 1978 when the first Nissan or Datsun showed up are not worth the time of day.
I'm saying to unravel it when the prices and everything in the world is as integrated as it is now.
So what do you feel about
Jason?
what do you feel about most favored nation pricing on pharmaceuticals?
Now, here, when someone asks me a question like that, it's like, okay, man, step into this one. It's going to grab your foot. It's going to rip it apart.
Yeah.
Well,
So don't you think we should all pay the same? Okay.
Yeah. Here's what I think. Yes, Scott, it
Thank
is
you.
true. Pharmaceuticals should be the same price for everyone.
Everyone. Yeah.
But now, are people in that country paid the same kind of scale that we are?
What's that? That's not that.
No.
Jason, is that our
Well,
problem?
Yes, it is.
No, because they're not.
Yes,
they're,
it is.
If they're
I
paying,
got
if
a
they're paying
million-
2 cents for a gallon of milk, then that's fine.
And when they have to buy their medication and it's $1,
Why
in
are?
America
Why
it's
don't they?
$1.
Why don't they need that medication? Than we do.
What?
Why do we have such a high rate of diabetes? Why do we have such a high rate of Alzheimer's? That
Here?
totally, yeah, in our country, yeah.
Oh, well.
Now we're getting on
Now
my
we're
Bobby
gonna-
Kennedy
well, you
pulpit
let-
here.
I already get that. I can just go into the RFK thing. But, but I agree with you. See,
Yeah.
That's what's so, I want to say sinister, but I think it's not really by design. We're a bunch of fools.
Yeah.
And we like to get satisfied. Right from the beginning, we're looking for the easier way.
Yeah.
We're looking for we're going to leverage something or somebody so we can sit home and have an extra hour of sleep.
Yeah, we had this conversation this
Did you?
morning.
Did you?
If we were born 10 years later, they probably would have been feeding both of us medication. Because I was I was a wild card.
Well, and I was quiet, remember?
Oh, shit.
They would have, I'm sure I'm partially autistic or something.
Yeah, they probably would have
Yeah.
fed Greg drugs.
So, no, and my drug was Scott. I mean, he kept me.
Scott or Scotch?
Scott. No,
Scott.
Scott's came later.
We had our Scotch years.
No,
Yeah.
but Scott allowed me to open up, and
Yeah.
and I toned him down. So there's some divine intervention here.
This
that brought
is
us,
toned down, Scott?
Yeah, this is
there's stories we could tell, not on this radio station.
one of those 7 words.
Beyond the
Greg was
seven-
my best man at my wedding.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no.
And same here. Actually, my brother was, but
Yeah,
Scott was
whatever.
should have been the best man,
Yeah,
But we were in each other's weddings. We, on opposite sides of the earth, broke our left arm at the same time, the same month. We had cancer at the same time. We got married the same year.
time, yeah.
We were born 4 days apart.
Yeah, our birthdays. And we're
Yeah.
both, 4 days apart. We both turned 65 in a little
Yeah.
bit, so we can be a legal senior citizen. So I can say whatever I want and say, well, the president had dispensation for 4 years. I should have it too.
Oh, he's giving it back.
So, God, where were we going? So this
See how
is,
he
so
comes
Greg,
up in all-
Greg
he
has
comes
this.
up in all conversations.
I know.
Trump.
No, do you want to? The interesting thing about that, what Greg just revealed is like his parents were so unique. Greg's parents were world antique dealers. So as I got to go to Disneyland, Greg is living in Belgium, France, growing up and going to schools
Scotland,
over there.
England, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. When I left the United States for those 4.5 years, and I came back in the summers, I had quite a few friends before I left. But as the time went by, and every time I came back, one person would call. I'd get back to my grandparents' house, and my grandmother said, some guy named Scott called and wants to know when you're coming back. And so we remained friends through that whole time. One letter. I think you sent me one letter.
Yeah,
I sent
maybe
you one letter.
Back. Yeah, we're not writers.
No, but that friendship survived that 4.5 years.
Oh,
and
yeah.
then when we came back,
Just had a blast.
Yeah.
I'd go and spend like a month at their condo because they would be at
it was Cascade Head.
Cascade
Yeah.
Head. And Greg's dad was the most comedic fellow. You know, if he had something, he had to have the best of it. He first bought a rubber boat, and then he's trying to take Greg in the ocean with the
No,
rubber.
he didn't try. He did. He
did.
bought a rubber raft, like a 7-man, with a little, like 3-horse engine on it. Took us out in the ocean to go.
This is the Pacific Northwest. We're not talking about
Yeah.
small ocean.
Then
You guys were covered in rubber swimsuits.
No.
no, we
trees.
had
Shorts and a T-shirt.
yeah. Then we came back, and he bought a rowboat.
A rowboat.
with an engine on it and off over the bar. Eventually, he bought a flat-bottom dory.
Dory. Oh,
That
Christ.
was an ocean-going vessel, so that was actually meant for the ocean. Took Scott and I out there, and remember that day? Yeah.
We were going up, and then down.
And I don't.
I mean, you felt like you were on one of those rides. At the
I threw up on
amusement
one
park.
of those between Molokai and between Molokini and Maui.
Oh.
So we
Yeah.
have waves. Whew.
Yeah.
Well, and then they dropped my father because I didn't want to get sick. I used to get sick, so he dropped Scott and I off on this little beach,
Oh,
isolated.
Christ. We're talking cliffs all
Yeah,
around.
he couldn't
all
get
around.
out of it.
Couldn't
but
get
he
out.
Left us there while he went fishing with my uncle and my brother, and then they had to come back and get us.
And the
Remember
ocean,
that?
and the
Yeah.
ocean got big. It got crazy big. And this is before that was CB radio, the best of it. It was just, yeah.
And
You
the
made it
waves.
out, I see.
We're like 12, 13 years old maybe at
So you
that
were there a
time.
week? How long?
No, yeah, we were probably well. It was probably one of those summers.
One of those summer, yeah.
Probably 14, maybe. But
Yeah.
anyway, he came and picked us up. But then getting out, we got sideways, and the boat.
Oh,
almost
Christ.
flipped. It was.
It was,
Great.
it was, yeah. It would have made
Yeah.
it would have made one of those reels that people would watch and go, "There's stupidness in a boat driver." Yeah, it was just like, holy, how did we live through those years? It's crazy. Yeah.
That's just one of many of experiences.
Oh my God,
really-
we could
should
talk
not
for
be
hours.
alive,
No,
the
we
two of
should
us.
not be alive.
Some-
Never.
Yeah.
No.
No,
Yeah.
wait, you're like what's his name? Danny DeVito and Arnold
Oh,
Schwarzenegger.
twins. Yeah.
Oh yeah, there you
You're
go.
like
Yeah,
twins.
yeah,
Yeah.
shit. It's like, and
Who's who in this one?
so, the funny, interesting. Greg's brother, another very unique person. Okay, so Greg, he's getting married, and his brother hold like the World Wrestling Championship belt for the Philippines.
One sec, there's a face coming at us.
What's
Yeah.
up, Tony?
FCC regulations. Stop saying the S word.
Oh shoot. Okay. I've been using the wrong. I'm sorry. So
Well, he was in professional wrestling. So
he's huge.
when we got married, he called me
Wow.
up about, I don't know, 3 weeks before the wedding and said, because he had to be fitted for a tuxedo, and said, I just want you to know I'm bulking up. And he was already bulked up. And
Oh,
so
huge.
he
Huge.
he went in to get fitted. They didn't have a shirt. They had to get like an extender to go around his neck.
Wow.
Yeah, my mother had to pin them together just so he could
Oh
be,
yeah.
in the
so
wedding.
we're doing. I rented a school bus. We're
Is he
talking.
still alive?
Yeah, he is. But he's actually in very good. Well, he's
Good shape? Pretty good shape?
he's got 2 new hips. So I mean, he's a truck driver. He's I would say he's in.
He's in better shape than most anybody
Yeah.
in his age bracket.
I was just
people would-
curious, you
Yeah.
know, when
Yeah.
I hear those
Yeah.
big people like that.
He's,
No.
he's a lot leaner than he was back then.
Yeah.
But yeah,
He's an amazing guy.
Yeah.
He speaks like multiple languages.
no, he doesn't.
He speaks Latin.
Oh well,
French.
he speaks Latin. But he
Pig
speaks
Latin.
Latin because
No.
when he converted to Catholicism, he learned Latin.
Yeah.
Or he learned Latin phrases. So I wouldn't. call-
Okay, I reached. I was on a reach
took
on
4
that one.
years of Latin in high school,
Yeah.
but
Oh, yeah.
I never was around speaking it.
No.
Well, I lived in a
Oh,
French-
Vidi vidi vecco.
And I lived in a French-speaking country for 2 years, so I didn't learn
Wow.
French fluently because I went to an English-speaking school. But
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, we have very.
we have
yeah,
such
yeah.
great stories.
Well, let me
Yeah.
hear one.
There's a million.
Pick one. But does it start with S?
Okay, no. Well, okay. So in college, Greg went to University of or Oregon State
Oregon.
University, and I went down to Southern Oregon State, and I bought. My car got stolen. I ended up buying a 1963 International Scout. This was a truck, which is kind of relevant to the story. It was like the option thing was on the window sticker was in the glove box, and it said doors were optional, front window was optional, seats were optional. It just one seat, this stick. This thing was like 55 miles an hour. It'd be winding out. So we took the top off, and then we had a bunch of friends. We went camping. We didn't have room for the beer. So we got my brother's trailer, and we filled it with ice, and we had an entire trailer
And
filled.
these big circular casks, weren't they?
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
know
something
what-
out of our warehouse.
Yeah. But the thing about that trip there on the internet, you took this bench and you put like a piece of wood underneath it and slipped it into there.
Yeah, we didn't have back seats.
There was no back seat, so my brother, my cousin, and I were sitting back, no seat belts.
Yeah, and Jeff Gamroth.
Yeah,
Oh, we
yeah.
got
What was that
Yeah.
vehicle? Forester?
No, International
Yeah.
Scout. It was just like, it kind of saved my life later on.
Well, yeah, I guess a Scout goes out there with very
Oh, it's
little,
a super 4-wheel drive. But yeah, that trip was just monumental.
Well, then there was a time we were on the international, and you got food poisoning, and I had
Greg didn't know how to drive a stick.
I didn't know how to drive a stick.
And this was not an
It's-
easy stick.
And Scott was sitting there like bent over, just moving the gear shift while I'm trying to figure out how to use a clutch. Never.
We're two teenagers, just young teenagers. We're just like, oh, Jesus. I forgot about that.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
that was
God,
quite,
that was,
that
yeah.
was quite a trip, yeah.
Oh, because he doesn't have his foot in it. Oh, goodness.
Oh, and you had to hit it perfect. It was a great old
Yeah.
car. Yeah, we had fun.
We did. It was we were sort of adopted children in each of our respective
Oh, yeah.
families.
Yeah, it was so
Yeah.
funny because we'd go on campouts and stuff, or we had a beach house, and Greg would always come stay at our beach house, but he'd have to go to Mass with us on Sunday or Saturday night Mass, go to church. So Greg was like, God, I got to go to those Catholic people and go to Mass.
I don't even understand what's going on.
Yeah,
And-
Greg's just
yeah.
back there like, what?
So back in 2006, my brother and I converted to Catholicism. So yesterday was the first time that Scott and I actually did Mass together as Catholics.
Since
Ever.
Ever.
Ever,
Yeah. We
yeah.
went to Mass back in the
Oh, yeah, I was-
60s and 70s, but yeah.
Yeah, this is the first time.
Yeah.
So that was a unique thing. So,
I have, maybe
Yeah.
I'm just in a dense fashion, but people converting from something that isn't Catholic
Nothing.
to Catholic, not from Catholic. I've heard a lot of the from Catholic.
Oh, I'm Catholic, born and raised, but yeah.
What makes Catholic different than
Well,
Jewish?
like one thing,
Jewish, you go, and if you don't know what you're doing, you go, please speak English. I don't know how you can go through this whole thing and not speak English and then tell me I should be here. I don't know what you're doing.
yeah.
That's
The strange thing about Catholicism, and this is just a side note. When my grandfather was a mechanic for Consolidated Freightways, which he did his entire life in downtown Portland, the Democratic Party would not let him join the Democratic Party because he was Catholic. Catholics weren't allowed in the Democratic Party back at 1915, right in that area. No, Catholics were evil. They were those angry Irishmen, and things have changed a lot.
What makes you go back to Catholicism?
He married an amazing Irish woman, or
Italian
amazing
woman.
Italian. Oh God, I'll get hit
yeah,
for that.
you're going to hear about that.
I'll hear
later,
about
yeah.
that.
100% Italian.
Yeah,
Catholic Italian.
big time Italian.
Yeah. But so when you talk about convert, it's not, we weren't Jewish, we were Christian to Christian is how I kind of look at it.
Yeah, that's what I was
Catholicism is
wondering.
just, really what the difference is Catholicism versus Protestantism. And so, I reached a point where I felt, it made sense to me, and it was very good for my
Your
relationship with the
relationship.
family, and I very much value what I get from the Catholic Church, and and I go to other non-denominational churches as well. I mean, they both have value, and so anyway, I don't know where I'm going with that.
No,
All right,
I'm
that
always
was nice.
interested
Good
because,
sharing, Greg.
yeah,
That was
you
great.
So,
in this
yeah,
day and age,
yeah.
where
Yeah.
I always think the young people seem, I may be wrong, we don't see attendance in churches as much because the
it's-
young people just aren't interested. So when I hear someone's converting, I'm thinking,
We're seeing a lot more young people in church. This new generation that's come up, these millennials, big time. It's
Is that
really,
right? 'Cause
it's weird.
I've seen so many. Maybe I'm just not out there now for these millennials and don't know.
Yeah.
But I keep seeing things drifting into this giant techno
Yeah, there's that.
kind of thing.
A
and
fun
really-
anecdote about Catholicism. I got to share this wonderful story. So we just got the new Pope, Pope Leo. Okay, back in 2008, my ex-wife and I took our kids to World Youth Day, and we were chaperones for World Youth Day. We went to New Zealand and Australia, and World Youth Day in the Catholic Church is where the Pope goes, and it's a big youth rally.
I see.
So we're in New Zealand. We went to this presentation by the new cardinal from the Philippines, and his name escapes me. Brand new cardinal. John Paul made him cardinal. He was going to ride in our bus with our group back to the next event. I sat with him for an hour and a half because the bus broke down, and he was number 2 in line for being Pope this last go around. And I'm sitting here going, please, please, I want to say that, because when I looked him in the eye, I get chills thinking about the conversations I had with him. He was just, I met Mother Teresa when I was like 6, and I still remember the chills I got from that. And that same thing, when I met this man and I talked to him, I'm like, wow, this guy's got such energy. And when I heard him talk, and I'm just like, just passionate. When you're around people like that, and you're just like, wow, that feels good. But I looked him in the eye when we were about to get on the bus, and we were talking, and just like we were talking now, this kind of stuff. And I said, you're going to be Pope someday. And that's the last thing I said to him. I'm like, please, please, that would be so cool if I told the cardinal that he was going to be Pope someday.
Well,
So,
he's still alive,
oh, he was number 2 in line.
there's
We're
no-
the same age.
so he
Yeah.
could still be Pope.
He could be.
We
Yeah.
could, but that's
Yeah.
This guy's pretty healthy.
This guy's really healthy. I can't believe they got an American. How in the heck?
I kind of suspected that was going to happen. I'd read about this guy, and
He's he's dynamic fellow.
yeah, but I mean, there was American Catholics represent a large percent. It's just what I read of the Catholic Church, and so there was some. You tell me if I'm right or wrong, but there seemed to. That's what I was reading, Scott. That there was a lot of incentive to have an American.
Oh, maybe.
Pope.
Yeah.
That's-
But he did a lot of his ministries down in South America.
He did. He was out of the country.
Never
a lot.
been in the
Yeah,
country,
Yeah, that's
yeah.
true.
Yeah.
So-
When I hear him, he's speaking Italian. It's like, I'm craving English. He says,
No,
"You're
you
gonna
just
start using
hit the
some-"
bottom at the bottom of your screen and switch it to English.
Yeah, well, I'm just anyone that's talking in a foreign language that I don't understand. To lots of people,
And he pounds on the desk saying they need to speak English if they're living here. Sorry, that was. If I could poke you, if I could poke you,
he was trying to poke me. That
I'm
was
trying
poke
to
the
poke
bear.
Jason.
No, it's not that they need to speak. I'm talking about me personally.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about it's not that they need to speak English, but to speak to me they do,
Yeah.
because I don't know that other language, and
No.
I've seen translations. It's like hiring these internet people.
Oh gosh.
I don't want to.
This is. Hey everybody, we're about to get on. We're going to watch Jason change color here. So pay attention to the color of Jason's face. He's going to explain to you what he's gone through trying to put his web page in line. Go for it, Jason. Talk about all those wonderful phone calls you've had. So Jason, who is he's a very intelligent man. I love him dearly, but he gets these calls saying, "I'm going to fix your web page," and Jason they're over there just reeling him in. And then they go, then Jason's telling me, well, I got to transfer you to somebody to do this, and then everybody's like trying to take a piece of the action. And Jason is a brilliant model to make Maui a better place.
Gullible.
Gullible. No, you're not gullible.
What am I?
What are you?
I actually know what it is. It's called, I expect people to come with the same level of truth.
Truth.
and
Speak your
honesty
truth, yeah.
That I do.
The golden rule: you want to be treated the way you would treat others.
And
right?
I
Yeah.
grant them that space to do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And then I believe it.
Yeah.
It's like,
Right. And Greg and I were talking, he was talking about this show, and I go, a lot of times there's just so many things that are happening in our world. Nobody's asking the questions, why? Why? Why is Anthony Fauci wanted in 7 countries for crimes against humanity? We should probably all look at that and go, yeah, We should look at that. Okay. So they were doing biological weapon research, and they were doing it and funding it with American money in China. Okay, we know that now.
But we knew it then. How come I knew this when the whole thing started?
You did. You were very good about that, Jason. You were really good about that.
I didn't have to dig too deep. But
No.
anyway, I guess
Right.
like we say, because the words that come out are controlled by someone who's rewriting the scripts
Right.
in a way that they'll go and touch this button
So
and
what
that
we've
button.
had talked about this morning is is exploring ways that Scott and I can come together and eke out the truth of these things.
Yeah.
And, you know, we were actually talked about it.
We had talked. We're quite a while now. Yeah.
But a podcast or something.
Yeah,
that would,
something.
where we take two different perspectives and try to bring them together. So
Yeah,
that,
we'll each
yeah.
research one side and then just
And
fight.
flip-flop it, yeah.
Yeah, blood, guts. But he'll be somewhere off in where his wife has him live. But yeah,
Arizona.
Arizona. He wanted to move to Maui
Where
when he
his wife-
retired,
Yeah.
but that wasn't going to happen.
What
So.
was that? That's an interesting little thing. Where his wife that hasn't lived.
No,
No.
I'm just teasing.
She's
No,
a traveler?
She
Arizona
travels
is.
a lot. So
Oh.
we actually we're from the Pacific Northwest. We now live in Arizona, and we live with my wife's cousin, and we have a great life down there. So, and but I still like to come back here. This is sort of my second home. It feels like
It's
Not
home.
since Scott's been here.
I've
Oh,
been
yeah.
here a long time now.
10 years he's been here.
Well, I've been here this
Quite a long
go
time
round.
for,
Yeah.
Well, I love your stories about what you heard way back when on the farm, and
Oh yeah.
those things are.
Yeah.
When you hear
Right.
those things, what do you think? What I think is, well, what are we going to do about it? What are we going to do about it now?
Well,
you're going to
but
rebuild
what they
again.
do-
What are you going to do about it?
What do they do about it now, Jason? They give somebody $5 million to study something that they already had figured out.
But are they doing it to stop it from happening?
No,
What are they doing to stop that rush coming down to Kihei?
Well, I wrote in on the last meeting when they talked about that, and I gave them a detailed letter. I probably should try to publish it somewhere else, but it's pretty basic. I mean, anybody that's worked around logging or anything like that, after they log, they definitely line up their debris on the hillsides so that it creates a check dam sort of situation with the like the limbs and stuff so that it catches dirt, and it creates a sort that standard logging practices. Bottom line, you can't just walk away from that.
Or we see terraced farming everywhere. We all know
Right,
it
you
needs
look
to
at
stop
Mocapishu
water.
or whatever in Peru, those
Doesn't
beautiful.
take rocket science.
No.
But we're not doing anything like that.
Well, we accidentally took those lines out, I think. You know, the great environmental movement that said we don't want sugarcane here because of the chemicals and pesticides.
All right, so we've had what 3 or 4 floods since then. So what's being done?
Well, the floods they had before,
I
the
know,
water
but-
was clear.
Yeah, but the floods that I've experienced, the condo that I stay at, have
Yeah.
been pretty severe and mud, and basically kept us from coming 2 times now.
Right, with 2 feet of mud in your
Right,
condo.
and so what's being learned from this is you've got a really good point here with the check dams and
Right,
and
yeah.
and all
Why-
that.
What's being done, right?
Well,
Fair
no, I want to
question.
know because let's say I had the money to buy one of those condos. Should I, or
Yeah.
it would be a waste of money because of the potential for
Well,
huge floods to come out.
all the feral land, and Jason mentioned who bought up that feral land up there up along Haleakala, all the way up from behind the high school, all the
No,
way
I was
up
talking
to
about the
Oprah's.
west side. JMB was a
yeah,
real estate
JMB,
company.
yeah,
Became JMB Amfac.
yeah.
Remember that whole
And
deal?
that's Danny, isn't it?
That's what?
Danny McNamara.
I don't know.
Oh, okay, I don't
All
know.
I know is when they stopped doing the farming, you said it. No one was really watching the field. So
Nobody
whatever
was
happened,
tending the
it-
land. No.
It became wild
Yeah.
enough that when it burns and the wind comes down, like you
Yeah,
said,
it just-
you explained it.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking about the Kihei side because
We just need to
I
go.
remember
If you don't,
the
you run
land
a.
swap, and that now it goes down to the water, and then it goes this way.
Yeah.
How did that happen? Because someone said, "Oh, I like that piece of land. Let's swap."
Yeah.
Well, that's not going to happen in 30 years. Now 30 years
We
later.
need to just go up there and then plow the land, pick up all the rocks, and line them up like they used to be.
So
I
it could be
think
done.
somebody took all those rocks and made them into gravel. I think they just went out there and put them in a dump truck, and they took them and ground them up and used them as, you know.
So this is not this problem will continue.
We need to
no matter
just
how many ways
we need to just terrace.
deal with the bottom. We have to go back.
We
up
have to go
the
up
top.
and terrace. That's a lot of rain
That's a
coming down.
lot.
And you know how sugarcane is so absorbent, like the stalks when they go dry, when those fields used to be dry after the harvest, and the chaff was there. That was like sponges laying on the hills. So when
Right.
we got a hard
So it
land,
drank it in and
it
didn't
drank
go
it in
down.
and slowed it down.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not rocket science.
No, it isn't.
No, we've always had floods in Kiev.
Been
Are
a
we?
great it's been a great
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for recognizing that was a right priority to jump on. Right, Scott?
Yeah,
Greg? Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
was
Got
awesome.
three
Yeah.
votes. Three votes.
Yeah.
not rocket science.
No, it's been a good conversation.
And that's
It's-
what
I've-
it's
I've
about. It's
learned a
fun,
lot.
isn't it?
You
Isn't
know,
this fun?
I
I
do-
told
I-
Greg this is really fun.
I do-
Jason's
I-
just a cat.
I do want to caveat about the wind farms, though. I do think there's value to them.
I do too. I do too.
'Cause I did just the way you were phrasing it sounded like I was. No, I'm not against them. I am actually. I think it's a technology that needs to be developed. And it's part of our energy portfolio, and I think that I don't think it's wrong to have them. I guess that's what.
No, but putting all your eggs in that basket.
I understand that, and I
Yeah.
totally agree with that.
Yeah.
In fact, I think you need to spread that out to all different technologies and different energy sources. And,
Well, this is
yeah,
going to have to go to another show
Yeah.
because
Oh,
we
I
have
know.
about a minute and so left. Can you believe we chewed up an hour? Blah, 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 blah.
Oh,
It's been
well,
great.
like
It's the first time
Pac-Man.
I've ever done something like that.
Well, we're
last
gonna have
time I
to
was
put-
on TV, Scott and I were 5 or 6 years
Yeah.
old at the Ramblin' Rod show in Portland,
Yeah,
Oregon.
my brother was
Yeah.
a director
Yeah.
for a kids television program,
Rambling.
Yeah.
and he did directing for the wrestling, Portland wrestling.
And so we all got prizes, right? He got the Light Bright set, and I got just a little package of Archway cookies. I go, how the hell? It was my birthday.
Hey,
it was my.
Is he allowed to say hell? You could say hell. Well, you're allowed at the end of the
Yeah.
hour.
I didn't say anything
Well,
bad.
no, you didn't. But it's just I could feel it in the air.
Oh, it was
Scott's
so
brother.
much fun.
Oh yeah. So thank you for inviting me.
Thank
Yeah.
you for
Yeah.
being
Yeah.
here, Scott. You're
It's always fun,
terrific.
Jason.
I'll be back in January.
Oh, he'll
yeah.
come on again.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
By the way,
we'll
we
book
want
it.
the problem solved, though. You guys, you just got to hear a sort of a free-running thing, like out of the box. We're out of the box.
Oh, we're
And
way
I am
out of the box.
completely out of the box.
We went all over the place. We went from the Pope
Thank
to
you for
flooding.
coming back
to,
to well, all of it. And I even said the word Trump twice.
oh,
That
my,
was
and
pretty
you
good.
know, he didn't go off on it either.
No,
I'm impressed.
why?
You're growing
I
up.
want to do good things that no matter what happens, they'll say those good things we can do no matter what politics does.
Mm-hmm.
We got 20 seconds left, so I'm going to say goodbye to all of you and all of you and all of you.
Peace,
Check
love.
in again, watch this show again as many times as you can, and you'll start to understand it. Love comes in many ways, and this is one of them.